This is a look at the N4DJ antennas getting set up for the fall contest season. This antenna is a 20-meter dipole. It's at 35 feet, and I've got a tag line on it. I have a knot in the tag line tied at 40 feet, so I can tell when the far end of the antenna is 40 feet above the ground. That pretty much means the center's at 35 feet. So this is the 20-meter antenna. What I've got over here is at the bottom of, or at the ground, my feed line. It's got markings on it. This is 0.872 feet, so I can easily tell how high it is by what the marking is on the coax at the ground. So this is about 35 feet. I'm going to walk over and take a quick look at the other antennas. This is a 40-meter dipole. It's about maybe 50 or so feet in the air, maybe 60. I have to check my records, but it's up in the air pretty good. Got it supported between two trees. And I've got the coax coming on over to the tree here. And from there it goes to my one of my antenna switches. This is my antenna switch. I've got three positions on this, and I've got one for the 80-meter dipole and one for the 20. I'm trying to separate them between day and night band, so I can come out here and switch this. For the daytime position would be 20 meters. For the nighttime position it would be 80 meters. And I've got another position available to patch another antenna in. Now this switch goes over to my remote switch. And this is my remote switch. I've got can control it from inside the shack. So I've got one position goes to my 40-meter antenna. The other position goes to my north-south dual band 1020 dipole. The other position goes to my northeast-southwest dual band 2010 dipole. And the other position goes out to my switch, where I have the 80-meter antenna and the 20-meter antenna. And up here is the dual band 1020, and that coax goes down directly to the remote switch. And try to get a better look at the 1020 antenna, and it's a 20-meter dipole hanging over top of a 10-meter dipole with PVC spacers in there. So I now have three 20-meter dipoles, northeast, southwest, and I have a north-south, and I have an east-west. So that gives me good coverage on 20 meters. The east-west antenna is sometimes a 10-meter dipole and sometimes a 20-meter dipole, depending on the contest. I do need to turn that into a third 2010, and then I'll have pretty much all directions covered on 10 and 20 meters. Now we'll walk over to the 160. Now over here I've got the 160 antenna. I haven't put a coax for this season yet, but I've got a piece of coax in the garage that I'm going to connect here and go to my remote switch. And let's see if we can open up the box and we'll get a good look at this. I have a vacuum variable in here, and the antenna itself comes in right here, goes through the vacuum variable for tuning it to resonance, and then it comes out to the coax. The inverted L is longer, about an eighth wave longer than a quarter wave, so that makes it long, which means that it is it has inductive reactance. Therefore, I need the capacitor to tune out the inductive reactance, leaving me with around 50 ohms of pure resistance on the antenna. Now, the antenna, the ground connection, I have one elevated radial which goes out in that direction into the woods. So that's one elevated radial. And then I've got another radial which is buried under the leaves and everything that's fallen out of the trees since I moved in here. So we've only got two radials on this, and we have a ground rod. We have the ground rod in here, and the antenna itself, don't know if we can see it with the camera, but the antenna goes up into the top of the tree about 65 feet or so, and then it tails off for the remainder of the L, going over to another tree down the side yard. So I've got about 160 or 70 foot inverted L here, and it works pretty darn good on 160 meters in the contest. I can forget the exact number, but I've worked 500, 600, 700, 800 QSOs in various 160 contests with this antenna in only two radials. Depending on my QTH, where I have lived in the past, sometimes I had no radials, sometimes I had two radials, and sometimes I think I had 3 radials at one time. So the number of radials kind of depends on where you live and what your ground is. One of my locations, I was just back from a salt marsh, and I don't know that I needed any radials there. I got most of my 5-band my 160 DX CC, which gave me a 6-band DX CC with that antenna, and I think maybe 0 to 1 radial, depending on what the year was, and it worked really good. So let's see, we've looked at the two dual band antennas. Here's another shot, if you can see it, of the northeast southwest dual band antenna. And so we've got the two dual band antennas, we've got the 40 meter antenna, and this showed you the 160 inverted L. And now I'm going to walk out in the backyard a little bit further, and where my 80 meter inverted V is for this year. Along the way, I'll just give an example of how I hold these antennas up. I use scrap 6x6 and have a screw eye in them, and I just use a carabiner of one sort or another to connect it to the 6x6. If the antenna moves too much, or it gets too windy, or we have a hurricane, the 2x6 is free to move, and that keeps the antenna from breaking. Here's another 2x6 that's holding one end of the east-west dipole. We'll walk on it here further. Okay, and we can see what I used before I had 6x6s. I used boat anchors. This is kind of in the, well, I guess it's in the sun now. This boat anchor is also free to move, and one time it went about 5 feet up in the tree because a branch fell across my antenna. The antenna didn't break. It just pulled the anchor up about 5 feet in the tree. So once I got everything cleared out, the anchor came back down, and I kept right on operating with that particular antenna. Here we are with another 6x6. That 6x6 is holding up the center of the 80-meter inverted V. If you look up in the tree, a little difficult to see, but somewhere up there is the center of my 80-meter inverted V, and the line that holds it up goes through a pulley and comes down to the 6x6. And of course the pulley is held up by a line that I shot over that big tree, or not quite over the big tree, but through the big tree with my antenna launcher. And see if we can find the end of the inverted V. This is the wire for the inverted V right here. Here's the end of it, and got it tied off at a tree so people and deer can walk under the antenna, no problem. And then the other end of the antenna goes back down over near my house, near the porch, and we'll walk over to that end, and I'll show you what I'm doing with how I go from phone and CW, go to phone and CW. I can cover both phone and CW with this antenna, but I have to change the length of it. Okay, this is the end of the antenna, and I have a connector here that I can change the length. If I want to go higher in frequency, I just disconnect the little pigtail I got on the end of it here, and I've got to do a little bit more precision tuning. I'm probably going to have to add a longer piece on here to cover CW the way I want, and I'm probably going to have to move the connecting point up on the wire a bit, because I would like to have it so that when it's disconnected here, I'm at about 3800 or maybe 3790, somewhere in that neighborhood for single sideband DX. And then when I connect the extra wire, it drops me down to about 3540 or something like that for CW DX. And I have had knife switches out here. I've used wire nuts. This is a push-in connector. There is a new connector out that's got levers on here, where you can open the lever and pull a wire out and stick another wire in and close the lever. I don't know if they're called Waco connectors, something like that. I've never bought any, but I've seen some, and I plan on getting some and seeing how well they hold up for my long antennas. I guess the only one I really need it for is the 80-meter antenna. I've got my coax is buried in the ground. It goes in a piece of conduit, and it goes over there to another piece of conduit where the main feed line comes out, and then it goes into my my remote switch. And now here's another boat anchor. And when I say I use boat anchors, I don't necessarily mean old-fashioned AM transmitters, but these two anchors belong to my grandfather, and he used them on his fishing boat. And later on, I even used one of them in my Boston whaler for a while. So they got some age on them, but they certainly do a good job for holding antennas up in the air.